Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Windshield Time, the podcast where we help you use your windshield time to turn learning into earning. Windshield Time is brought to you by Service Excellence. I am Chris Elmore, your host, and I am joined by none other than Harold James Walker Jr., known as J-Dub. Today on the podcast, wait for it, it's not logical, stupid. Stay tuned. Was that a better title? I like that title.
No, that's pretty good. It's not logical, stupid. I'm wondering what you've got in that coffee cup. You got some happy juice in there?
An inch of
you
cold
look like
coffee.
Grandpa's cough syrup?
No.
No.
It's I'm having some sarsaparilla.
Sarsaparilla. A little Shirley Temple, if you will.
So,
Shirley Temple.
So I'm going to tell this story.
I'm so excited.
I know you are.
I shouldn't have brought it up.
You did, though.
I did.
I wasn't even thinking about it until you said something. Do you want to tell the story? And you said the story about it, but I knew what you were talking about before you even got to that.
It is now unofficially named The Story. It's not a story anymore. It's The Story. Definite article.
It's James Walker attends the Midvale School for the Gifted. That's what it is.
Thank you, Gary Larson.
Okay. Alex, do you know who Gary Larson is? Have you ever heard of the Far Side comics? Okay. On your side, I want you to Google Midvale, Midvale, School for the Gifted, Far Side. Okay? And I'm gonna tell the story, and you'll understand it when you see that. So James and I both used to work for a franchise company called AirServe. It's part of the Neighborly Group. A lot of good years there, working for our real good friend Doyle James. And I had an opportunity to make a lateral move to one of the other franchise companies there as the VP of Ops with the view of grooming to take over for the president who would be retiring in 2 years. So I had accepted, and one of the ways over the years through the military, especially like in the old days of the British Navy, one of the ways you paid a compliment to a captain is you gave them the power of promotion for their first lieutenant. Okay? So don't ask how I know that, but I do. And so Doyle paid me a very, very huge compliment, which is, when we talked about me making this move and leaving the VP, is it the VP ship? The VP ship. The vice presidency. Sure. Would it be the vice president? That sounds too grand.
The vice presidency.
The vice presidency sounds too grand.
Yeah.
It does sound too grand. Anyway, I was the VP of AirServe, and I was going to leave to be the VP of one of the other sister franchises. And he paid me the compliment of saying, "Who do you think should replace you?" And it wasn't just give me a couple of names and I'll figure it out. It was really, who do you want to replace you? Who do you think should replace you? And so there was another person at the company that we felt like we owed it to make the offer to, but we both knew that this person would turn it down. We both knew that, but we also knew that it would be paying them a compliment to let them know that we're going to offer it to them, but we knew what they would say, and that's how it went down. Everything was great. And so he says, "Who do you want to replace you? Who do you think you should?" And I, without hesitation, I said, "James Walker." I don't think I said your last name because he knew your last name because you worked there too. So I said, "It's got to be James." He goes, "Okay, I agree." And this was like 9 o'clock in the morning. And so at 10 o'clock, I texted James. I said, "James, me and Doyle want you to go to lunch with us." I didn't give him any preamble. I didn't give him any explanation. I just said, I want you guys to go to lunch with us.
I'm not going to say that I didn't need to change my drawers before lunch. So
you might have. I don't know.
I might have.
So
scary text.
We went to the local restaurant there, and we had a great lunch. told James about it. I feel like you were excited and,
Yeah.
honored to be off, whatever. And I was really happy for you too. And you got to work with Doyle and those kind of things. And we talked it through and how we'd make the announcement and when. We still had some things to work out. And so, Alex, did you find the cartoon? Okay. So we're leaving the restaurant. We paid for our food and we're leaving the restaurant. And there's 2 doors. And so James grabs the door and he is pulling on it. At first, it was just kind of a tug, and he's like, a little confusion. He tugs again. And then very quickly, it escalated to, I'm locked in. I have to get out of here. With
fervor.
Shaking,
right?
They were shaking the door. There was an urgency in leaving the restaurant. And I looked over at him and I said, James, it says push. And then I looked at Doyle and I said, maybe we made a mistake.
Oh, it's classic.
One of my favorite James Walker stories. That's my favorite J-Dub story, I think. My favorite. But anyway, so Alex, do you see the cartoon now? So you understand it. And you can see why it's funny. And you can see why we call it James Attends the Midvale School for the Gifted. Except that kid's pushing on a pull. James pulled on a push.
There you go.
And the thing is, James, everybody listening to this podcast, all 5 of them have done that before. Either
but not
push
at
the
the
pull
tail
or
end
pull
of
the
a job
push.
interview where you were just told why you were going to be such a great fit for leadership.
Yes. But they haven't done it in a critical circumstance like that.
Right.
And I mean, I'm sure there's some people that have triple stamped a double stamp, but not in a critical conversation like that.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Harold James Walker Jr., known as J-Dub.
That's it.
That's an endearing story, James.
Yes. Now it is.
Now, I don't have any like that you tell.
Yeah.
I don't have any endearing stories that you tell.
You're correct, boss. You don't have any, boss.
Well, let's get to the topic of the day here before all the C's.
It's not logical, stupid.
What are we doing here? When are y'all going to get to the content? So it's not logical, stupid. Okay. First of all, I don't think any of the 5 of you listening to this are stupid. Okay. I don't think now any of the 4 of you that are listening to this are stupid. But it was just to make a point. I think, and I overhear these conversations when we've done field evaluations with technicians in the past. We see it when we listen to recorded calls. We hear it. What happens is technicians fall into technical thinking. Some do it overtly and they use buzzwords and fall into technical explanations of things to customers, right? You've seen it. It doesn't matter what the trade you're in. And what it sounds like is the speak when you come across 2 nerds talking about something. And when I say nerds, I'm talking about myself because I can nerd out on things. And it's like you hear those 2 people, you're at a restaurant, you hear those 2 people talking about stuff and I think we commented before on the J-Dub Ruins podcast episode about how Mover and Gonky talk about, oh, that's a stick from a A10 Warthog, right. And they're like, oh no, he can't do the GF67 with the tanks on the outside, and all that kind of stuff. Now, some technicians do fall into that overtly, and it's obviously totally recognizable. But I want to talk a little more subtly about that because I think that we've done a great job of explaining on this podcast anyway, and then through the lessons we teach at Service Excellence, that we have to put our explanations into customer-friendly language, right? And we can't use buzzwords. And buzzwords, for anybody that don't know, a buzzword is anytime you use an abbreviation, a word, acronym that the customer won't know unless you explain it to them. Or, and those are things like for, let's see, what do they call that? there's this thing in electrical that I was talking to Jesse about.
Ohm's law?
Huh?
Ohm's law?
No. I know Ohm's law, James, and I have podcasts to prove it. This thing is called like the Mega Beast or something. And what it is, do you know what the Mega Beast is?
I have.
No, hold on. Let me define the context here. Sorry. In electrical, you know what I think it's Beast Mode or Mega Beast or Beast Master or something like that.
Okay.
No, you don't know what that is?
I don't have a clue.
Well, hold on. Let me make sure that I got the right thing here. Yeah, I think it's called the Beast Master. Or the Mega. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, it's one of those things. Does it sound electrical to you?
Not at all.
Okay. If you told a customer, listen, we're going to have the utility come out here and hook up the Beastmaster to your electrical meter or your electrical meter base. What would that, if you're a customer and you were told that, what would you think?
I would have no idea. I mean, that is a very random name of something electrical as a component.
Oh, it's called the Beast of Burden.
Oh, the Beast of Burden.
Whatever.
Okay.
Or is the Super Beast?
It's okay.
The Super Beast or Beast of Burden.
Okay.
James, we're going to have the utility company come out and hook up the Super Beast or the Beast of Burden to your electrical system in order to find your problem. What do you think is going to happen?
I mean, I'm picturing an ox of some sort.
Oxen.
Oxen.
Yeah, a yoke.
Right. Amish
one ox
paradise.
Is positive and one ox is negative.
That's right.
So you're forming your own conclusion because nobody said what that was, right?
Sure.
So what do you think? I mean, come on, act like you've been there. Tell me what you think it is.
Beast of Burden is going to be something that runs a current through the line that shows you where there's a breakdown or something.
Okay, did you Google it? I think you Googled it quickly.
No, there's my hands. I'm just sitting here like this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, the Super Beast or the Beast of Burden is a conductor tester, a service conductor tester.
Huh.
And apparently it figures out if you've lost a neutral or something.
Interesting.
I didn't know that until I found out.
I just guessed.
Yeah. So Super Beast. Now, imagine Jesse talking to Jack.
Yeah.
And Jesse's like, yeah, man, we really nailed that call. We had to have the utility company come out and hook up the Super Beast, and then we nailed it. Jack's like, oh, man, that's so cool. That's awesome. And they high five about it. What are you thinking? Nerd. Right? Because they're using insider language that they clearly understand that nobody else does.
Right.
Right? So that's an example. In HVAC, a buzzword is even a word like refrigerant. What does a customer know it as?
Freon.
Freon. Well, Freon is a brand name of the DuPont company, And so just like my Nana, I love my Nana. She was so great. You didn't get a tissue. What'd you get? What do you think?
Kleenex.
Kleenex. Well, that's a brand name, right?
Yeah.
And every soda was a Coke to her.
Right.
Again, brand name. Okay. So that's just an example of some things that could be like that. Anytime you're using acronym AFUE, SEER, things like that. Or you say, yeah, your system, we're going to need some more 410A, those kind of things. That kind of stuff is where we get off track with the communication. Mm-hmm. So that's easy, right? Because I can tell you, just don't do that stuff. Don't use those words. Just make sure you're explaining it without using those kind of words, and use words that the customer understands, even if they're not technically right. Like you get some HVAC technicians, you can't call it Freon because that's not what it is. Because their bottle is not a DuPont labeled bottle or whatever. So it's not Freon, right?
Right.
So they don't want to call it that. They call it refrigerant. Well, the moment you say refrigerant, I think nowadays most people know. But if you just say 410A, what is that? Right?
Right.
And so we've got to go a little further. But here's the other thing is you become used to talking technical to people because most of the conversations, the meaningful conversations you have in a day are with other technical people, right? What's
Sure.
something in your world, James, where you can have a conversation with another person where you lapse into technical speak that the layperson wouldn't understand?
The financials. I think everything talking about margins, cost of goods sold, understanding contribution margin, things like that.
Yep, that's true. Anything else?
Oh
What
man.
if we were talking about documentary filmmaking?
Oh yeah. Sure. Everything from jump cuts to VO to CGI to
I think you and
um,
Alex could probably have that conversation. I would not know
UI.
anything about what you were talking about. Alex, did you understand what he said? He doesn't know why you say CGI.
Yeah, that's the old school way of doing it. It used to be CGI. It's not CGI anymore.
I don't know what the answer is to that, but you guys could probably have a conversation. I won't understand a word, right?
Sure.
And so here's the thing. When we say it's not logical, you're used to the technical. So your conversation tends to be more technical by default. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Well, and because there's an efficiency of communication between people who understand concepts.
Yeah.
Because if you understand what I
You
mean
share
and
the
I understand
same
what I
frame
mean,
of
we can
reference.
be very precise.
Yeah.
Huh?
You share the same frame of reference.
Same frame of reference, so you're able to speak precisely as opposed to generally, right?
Mm-hmm. And so when you're used to the technical and you're used to talking to technical people, you lean towards the technical side. And so words alone are not enough. Just swapping out words. Instead of saying, um, you know, beast of burden or super beast, you say conductor tester. Okay, that's not enough. Okay,
Right.
to get somebody to want to do something, maybe,
Right.
or to explain why
The
something needs to be
functionality.
done, the functionality. That's
Right.
not enough. And so one of the things we teach is FAB,
Mhm.
features, advantages, benefits. Now, for those of you who are listening going, oh no, we're going to start that's an old car sales thing, right? Because my father-in-law was in car sales for 30 years, and FAB was one of the things that he knew: features, advantages, benefits. And so when you do that, when you get when you fab something, okay, you take uh, I don't know, a pressure reducing valve for a plumbing system, and you have to fab it out. Well, you answer the questions associated with each letter: FAB. Features. What is it and what does it do? Okay. Pressure reducing valve takes the high incoming city water pressure and reduce the utility water pressure and reduces it to the acceptable range for your home and fixtures and things in your home that are connected to the city water. Okay. So that's what it is and what it does. It's a device installed in line on the incoming water supply line to your house, and it reduces the higher city water pressure to an acceptable range for your home and the fixtures and everything connected to the city water. Okay, great. That's what it is and what it does. The advantages question can be taken care of by why does my home system or me need it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why would you need a pressure reducing valve? Why does your system need it? Well, your system needs it to reduce the pressure to that acceptable range that I mentioned because your fixtures, the seals, the valves, everything that, all the rubber connections and things that are used to hold back the water, those kind of things are designed to operate within a pressure range to get the maximum life out of them. If we don't have this, then we get higher water pressure, and those things are under stress. And when something is under stress, it fails sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's features, advantages. Now the benefits. Benefits, what is it going to save me in time or money to do it? And what is it going to cost me if I don't?
Mm-hmm.
By replacing it, it helps your fixtures last longer, so you don't have to replace them as often. Will also help the seals so that you don't get bypass leaks on faucets, so dripping faucets, toilets running, those kind of things, if everything works at the appropriate water pressure. Also, it's easier on your water heater. And replacing those things can cost many hundreds of dollars, and you don't want to have to do that any more than you need to. Also, you have the downtime of having to make the repair and then maybe going without hot water. So that's just off the top of my head in a nutshell what we're doing here, okay, with Fab for pressure reducing valve. And I know all your plumbers are going, oh, you're so stupid, you don't know what you're talking about. That's okay. Fix it for me. But the point is that what we did there was we took a technical concept, we explained it in a way that we attached it to the emotions of what? What are the emotions? What do we attach it to, James? What do we, not the emotions yet, but what did we attach emotions to in that situation?
Well, we attach emotions to loss and what they stood to lose if we didn't do something. The
Well,
meaning behind it. Meanings.
Yeah, specifically though,
Right.
we attached emotion to a dripping faucet,
Right.
right? Because now they have more knowledge. So the next time they have a dripping faucet, they remember, oh, I wonder if the water pressure's too. I wonder if that thing is still working, right?
Yeah.
So we've now
Mm-hmm.
attached an emotion to something that, quite frankly, if you have a dripping faucet, do you notice it unless it's making a noise? Do you care?
Right. Not too much.
No. But have you priced a kitchen faucet lately? I mean, it's $600-700 to have it replaced these days, and that's probably for
Right.
a low to mid-range one. So
Right.
we've attached emotion to a common everyday issue. Jiggling the handle on a toilet. Okay, well, that's probably going to be due to a flapper, et cetera, but it could be caused by bleed by or something like that. But a water heater failing prematurely because you have high water pressure, that could happen as well. So we've attached emotion to these things. Now, what emotion specifically did we attach to these things?
Well, I mean, there's fear attached to what, for me, when you said and the water heater, I think a lot of people don't worry too much about, faucets so much. But when you have a water heater that could be compromised, there's a lot of money attached to water heater and a lot of damage that could be attached to it as well.
That's right. And so the fear emotion, fear is a base emotion for what other emotion? Anxiety,
Right.
right? And so I'm afraid the water heater might fail, so I worry about it. I'm anxious about it. And now anything that may happen, like I noticed it takes a little longer for the hot water to get to the bathroom, I'm now thinking about it. And so emotion has been attached to these things. And what I've done is, I know we opened the episode by saying it's not logical, but what the point with that of that title was, it is logical, everything I just said, right?
Right.
Everything I explained to you has logic behind it. It's cause and effect, probability, that kind of thing, right? But what we did was we didn't forget the emotion that had to go with it. Because if I just fa something, if I don't fab it, if I fa it, don't fa it up, James. That's pretty good. You don't like
I
that?
bet.
I don't know. Alex, something just hit me. I don't think James has used any big words.
I'm doing my best to keep it monosyllabic.
Did you put the right emphasis on the right syllable in that?
That's how I say it.
But what we did is if we leave off the features and advantages, which is what you tend to do if you're a technical person, because it's easy to say, what is it and what does it do? It's easy to say why the customer's home system or the customer themselves need it. What gets left off frequently is the benefits in terms of time and money that I save or I lose. So one or the other thing is going to happen. It's never going to stay neutral. And so, yes, we have a logical argument, but maybe I should have changed the title to "It's Not Just Logical, Stupid." Is that a better title?
I like that. That's good. We're workshopping this title as we go.
Yeah. Well, that's okay, because that's what we do on this podcast. Because this is for everyday people, James.
That's right.
That's right. This is for the backbone of America. This is for the essential workers that make it possible to live indoors and enjoy our time indoors.
I'm with you.
Right? Okay. So the part about the logic, okay, we always talk about how, we talk about the psychological impact of it, but you have to know your stuff. Okay? One of the hard things for you to do is connect emotion to something if you are not informed enough about how something works. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Or the importance of something working too.
Yeah. So give us something, James, that you've come across that you feel like you've got technicians, they know what it is, but they're just not quite sure how it works.
I mean, I hate to always resort back to the HVAC side, but a lot of the IAQ stuff.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
It's, I don't know, snake oil, or my boss told me to sell this and I think it works good, but, they use it on the space shuttle. What do you think? And so it's not grounded, A, in personal experience, or B, an understanding of how it works. And so it's something that you're selling as opposed to something that you're believing
it's something
in and
you're pushing.
Right. Something you're trying to push because I should, as opposed to something that you believe in and share. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. And so typically we feel that way if we're uninformed. Now, I've known technicians that got informed and they still didn't believe in a product, but that's better than being uninformed and either just not talking about it or talking about it in an ineffective way.
Right. Not being prepared to answer questions,
mm-hmm.
justifiable questions about the value of an opportunity. Right.
Yeah. And to be fair with indoor air quality, that can be kind of black magic-y.
Yeah.
Because you have one product saying this and another product completely contradicts that, or says basically they do the same thing, but they're clearly completely different things, right? Yeah. Air filtration is one. Like, you could go to the grocery store and buy the Arm & Hammer filter endorsed by the Allergy and Asthma Doctors of America, or whatever that organization's called. And it's got a MERV rating of this, and you can put it in and think it's the same thing as a 4-inch accordion type air filter. They're different.
Right.
And while they both may have the same rating, one is way better than the other long term. And so that's the thing, is we've got to be informed. And a lot of times we get prejudiced against something because we're not informed enough about it. I mean, isn't that the definition of prejudice a lot of times in whatever we're talking about? Social, whatever, it's just because we're uninformed.
Right.
And so that goes back to, okay, it's not just the logical, but if you are not informed enough and educated enough and curious enough, if you're not curious enough to find out about products, when it comes up, customers are going to see through that. Even if you're dumbing it down, in air quotes, even if you're using customer-friendly language, if you don't know how it works, they're going to see that.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, we've talked about this recently on the podcast, but translation. If what you're saying has an incorrect meaning in English and you translate it to Spanish, it's still incorrect. It's just in another language. And so if what you say is ignorant in English, it's going to be ignorant in Spanish once it's translated. So the customer-friendly language is another language, so to speak. So we're translating technical into customer-friendly language. So if your technical understanding of something is junk, it's going to be junk in customer-friendly language.
Yeah.
Or worse, or worse, you're going to translate it in a way that hides your ignorance, which is not a good look.
Right.
Right. And so like you said, indoor air quality is one of those. But also, I think it's a situation of, if you're not educated and informed on how things work, and you're out there, as you say, or as we would say, pushing them, or you feel like, okay, I'm just uninformed, but I'm making my best effort to inform the customer of these things, but you're still uneducated about what they are, I think that borders on unethical. What do you think about that?
I
I think it could be
do think
seen as that.
that. Sorry.
I think it could be seen as unethical by other people.
I definitely think it can be seen as unethical. I think that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I
Did
mean, I
Shakespeare
think
say that?
that. Say?
Did Shakespeare say that?
I don't know. Possibly. But I do think that there's a place of where, regardless, I mean, you've got guys who are trying to emphatically, even with IQ, well, it's the death of the common cold. You're not going to ever suffer. There's places of where, one, if you make statements that are unfounded, even if a part of the time it never goes unchecked, there's going to be a time that somebody checks you on that,
Oh, yeah.
and you're going to have falsely sold people something that is inaccurate,
And here's
right?
the thing. All somebody has to do is to check you on it these days is probably just Google it
Or chat GPT it,
or
right?
chat GPT, whatever. Right.
Sure.
I can tell you a lot of places. Well, here's a product from the electrical world, arc fault breakers.
Mm.
Now, this is a PSA. Let me stop and do a PSA. Hello, electrician friends. Do you find yourself puzzled by arc fault breakers? Do you find yourself wondering, why the heck do we need these if we haven't needed them for all these years? Do you find yourself wondering, why, when I put in an arc fault breaker, does it automatically trip because of all the other problems with the electrical circuit? Well, my friends, I have a solution for you. Talk to Jesse Olson at the Happy Outlet. He loves to talk about arc fault breakers. Okay, we're back. I wonder if I give out Jesse's phone number, if that would be a problem.
I'm sure he'd love that.
But arc fault breakers are one. Just like arc fault breakers, from my perspective, are like the UV light in HVAC. It's kind of got that aura around it. Like there's a bunch of really deep scientific principles behind it.
Yeah.
But most people don't figure out what those are. They don't understand what those are. I don't know what one would be in plumbing. Can you think of one in plumbing?
Not easily. I'd have to. Someone you can do the tankless side of things, or some of the filtration, or conditioning, water conditioning, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. And so, to me, if you're out there and you are at a company where they say, okay, we want everybody to do this, I think the company, from a standpoint, will make an attempt to educate everybody on it, or they'll bring in a vendor that will educate you on the product, right? And so, but I think you owe it to yourself to take a deeper dive in some of these things, because if you don't understand the technical part of it and you try to talk about it, you'll try to translate what you don't know into the customer friendly language, and it'll still sound like you don't know what you're talking about. Or, like you said, the customer will be able to check you real quick by going online and figuring out, oh, wait a minute, the guy said this, and that's not really true. Now, are you going to show to advantage in that situation? Is a customer going to think good things about the technician?
No. Anything that can be attributed to ignorance will be attributed to malice.
Ooh, I like
Right?
that. Look into the
I
camera and
mean,
say that again.
anything that could be attributed to ignorance will be attributed to malice.
Now unpack it.
Well, I mean, the inverse of that phrase is never attribute to malice what could be attributed to ignorance or incompetence, right? But that's because, in absence of, if I hear something from you and I've got the choice to choose between whether you did that just unknowingly, ignorantly, or maliciously trying to manipulate, in this scenario, we default to misattributing that most likely to malice or to manipulation rather than just ignorance or lack
Yeah,
of
bad
preparation.
intentions.
Yeah.
We default to bad intentions rather than ignorance about something.
Right.
Instead of,
Because ostensibly you're the expert.
yes, and you're just trying to get them to buy something.
Sure.
And so
Which,
anytime,
to be fair, you might be at that point.
yes,
Even
you
though you're
are.
not thinking about it, you're trying to get them to buy something that you don't understand.
Right. And so, we talk about handling objections. A lot of objections come up because of a lack of the customer understanding why they need something. And that could be because of an incomplete understanding on your part, which leads
Mm.
to an incomplete explanation. Because what you leave out typically is how it connects to them emotionally. Because here's the thing, if someone doesn't understand how something works and why they need it or the benefit it's going to provide them, they cannot connect to it emotionally,
Mhm.
right? So I might be selling a widget to somebody, and if they understand how the widget's going to help them or hurt them if they don't have it, there's no emotional connection to that. It's like whatever, right? But if they understand inherently how this is a benefit to them for having, or how it's a cost to them for not having it,
Yeah.
then there's an emotional connection to that dripping faucet because the water pressure's high.
Well, I'm about to sneeze.
And it could be at that moment or it could be
Excuse me.
later, because we all have customers that decline things we recommend at the time
Yeah.
because of lack of urgency or whatever, lack of understanding or lack of it being of enough value to take care of it at that time. But imagine you had that conversation and you were well informed of how a pressure reducing valve worked and the effect on them and in terms of time and money. And then 3 weeks later, their kitchen faucet starts dripping because they didn't do anything. Now, could it be related to the PRV? Maybe. But are they going to at least think it could be related to the PRV because you educated them 3 weeks ago? Yeah, they can.
Mhm.
Now there's an emotional attachment to that. And that's,
Well, and the thought process is people buy based on emotion and they
yes.
justify that decision based on logic. So, yeah, again,
Whether
just bought a
that's,
truck.
well, yeah, you just bought it. Go ahead. I was going to
Just bought a
ask you
truck
about that.
not too long ago, and you're in the nitty gritty of the details. It's a little bit more than I want, but it, gets me what I want. And it's, got leather seats as opposed to cloth. And, should I really? Well, it's a long term investment. I'm going to make an emotional decision, yes or no. And then I'll come back later and try to justify that with logic. Well,
Yeah,
it's going to make more
James,
financial
man,
sense.
James, why did you go from an Infiniti sedan to a 4-door Chevy Silverado?
Emotion. I wanted a big truck.
But see, you didn't say to me when I asked you about that, because I did ask you that. I said, why did you get a truck?
Yeah.
Because you don't
Oh,
seem
well,
like
I
a
need to
truck guy.
haul things. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I need to haul things, and I've already, and you said I had all this stuff in my garage, and I was able to haul it to the dump this weekend
That's right.
because I had something to put it in. And I
There's
asked you,
the
has anybody
logic.
asked you to help them move yet? You said no,
That's
not
right.
yet.
So you justify it with logic, but you buy based on emotion,
Oh yeah,
right?
you bought based on how it made you feel at the time.
Yeah.
The emotion is very intense in the moment, and it wanes over time. And you
How it
search for
still makes me
logical
feel,
reasons.
Chris.
What?
It's how it still makes me feel. It's not
That's
just
a
at
good
the
looking
time.
truck. It's
I'm
a good
still
looking
glad
truck.
I have the truck.
Yes, I know you are. But
Then I got to make that payment.
it
So,
could. But okay, yeah. Now the emotion kicks in because there's emotion tied to money, right?
yeah, for sure.
And so that's the thing about it. And so in this particular case, the points to remember here are number one, it's not only logical. And you, as a technical person that operates on a sound troubleshooting principle of eliminating potential issues and finding potential issues based on circumstances, based on measurements, based on readings, based on your experience, you lean on the technical explanation of things. And it's almost like, duh. That's how you're thinking. Duh, if you don't do this, it's going to break again. And I'm going to be back out here. You're going to spend the same money again or even more because of tariffs and increased prices. And duh, you need to
Mhm.
do it because it's only going to break again. And you lean in on the technical because you're used to talking to technical people. You tend to default to that mode especially if there's a pushback. We didn't address that, but especially if the customer pushes back to you and you hear something that suggests they researched it maybe, then you try to whack them over your head because your technical is bigger than theirs, right? But you have to remember FAB, features, advantages, benefits. Why? What is it? What does it do? Why do I, my system, or myself need? Why do I, my system, or my home need it? And what is it going to cost me in terms of time and money if I don't do it? What am I going to gain if I do it? So you remember that last piece, the B in FAB, the benefit that's tied to time and money and a gain or loss, that is the emotional piece that supports the logic, right?
Yeah.
So we just got to remember that emotional side, and that there's emotions tied to it. And it's not just logical. And if you're a technical person, it's not just about proving you're right. Right?
Exactly right. Yep.
Exactly right. See, I just proved I was right. So, just like always, if you want to know more about it, you can reach me, Elmore at servextra.com. SERVEXTRA.com is also our website. Go there, like and share the podcast, check out upcoming classes, get downloads, free stuff, cool blog articles, those kind of things. You can call me also, 254-733-7109, or you can text me. If you'd like to talk to James Walker, J-Dub,
254-230-5266 or James at servextra.com.
That's right. And James, my friend, is going on a vacation.
That's right.
Where are you going?
Hawaii.
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 Carrie Webb is going to Hawaii next week.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Okay.
Fast.
So before you go to Hawaii, what do we do here at Service Excellence?
Service Excellence, Chris. We turn learning into earning. It's always Shatner.
You always go to Shatner. Thanks, everybody.